The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, handles 16 million flights every year, or approximately 44,000 flights on a daily basis. And during peak travel times, there's around 5,000 planes operating in North America's airspace at any given hour. The responsibility for handling this huge operation falls on Air Traffic Control, or ATC. You'd think, with stakes this mind-blowingly high, that ATC would have to work with military precision. They must be well-staffed, highly educated, and equipped with the latest technologies. But as you'll find out in this surprising video, they're actually a lot less organized than you think. First, some background. Air Traffic Control is an organization run by the FAA, which deals with coordinating the movement of commercial and private aircraft. They're the sole point of contact for thousands of pilots tasked with getting you to your destination safely and on time. According to the FAA, there are 14,695 air traffic controllers working in the United States. They work out of 518 ATC towers, 21 air traffic route control centers, and 154 terminal radar approach controls, or TRACON, facilities. So, who are these people, and how do they manage America's runways and skies? You won't actually see air traffic controllers on the runway itself, guiding planes with orange paddles. That's the duty of aircraft marshalers. Nor will you see them preparing the craft for flight. That's the flight crew. ATCs take a more hands-off approach. It's even possible for an air traffic controller to never set foot on a plane. What kind of person does it take to be an air traffic controller? Well, pretty much anyone. There are no formal educational requirements for becoming an ATC. While it helps, you don't even technically need a college degree. Succeeding in this line of work is all about temperament. To be an air traffic controller, you need to be young, focused, and have incredible stress management skills. FAA rules dictate a mandatory retirement age of 56 years old to make sure the mental faculties and eyesight of ATCs never deteriorate. People over age 30 aren't even allowed to apply. Many employees of air traffic control are former pilots and ex-military, but this by no means is a requirement. Ideal ATCs have a decent grasp of mental arithmetic and strong spatial awareness. They're also expected to pass numerous medical and psychological examinations from the FAA, as well as completing a several-month training course followed by years of additional training on the job. The process is hardly streamlined, taking months or even years in some cases. Every air traffic controller in the U.S. is trained at the Mike Mulroney Aeronautical Center, situated in Oklahoma City. They take a course known as the FAA Academy, where they're trained to take on the various duties of being an ATC. These duties, by the way, are surprisingly broad, from operating radar and communications equipment to making sound judgments to following flight sequencing protocol. Air traffic controllers even have their own special language called radiotelephony, which they're required to learn comprehensively. This process is known to be grueling, with experienced air traffic controller and badass name owner Vic Vector estimating that 25% to 40% of applicants drop out. Still, this is for the best, as letting an incompetent applicant slip through the cracks can have devastating consequences. More on that later in the video when we discuss the darker sides of ATC. Without air traffic control, your flight won't even leave the blacktop. While the plane taxis before takeoff, ATCs in air traffic control towers observe and direct pilots. They coordinate taxiing planes to avoid collisions on the runway and sequence the flight for takeoff. Once the plane has successfully taken off, jurisdiction passes from the ATC towers to air traffic controllers and TRACON facilities. These facilities use radar technology to handle what's known as approach control. This means dealing with the flight's ascent out of the terminal area and ensuring planes are safely out of each other's paths. When the plane ascends out of TRACON airspace, jurisdiction transfers yet again, this time to an air route traffic control center, or en route center. These 21 en route centers direct planes to the vast majority of U.S. airspace, helping them maintain their course. They also assist the flight in reaching its final cruising altitude and preventing any mid-air route conflicts with other planes. When the flight makes its final descent towards its destination, jurisdiction passes back to TRACON for the landing. Finally, once the plane has made a successful landing, another ATC tower guides it to the proper terminal. It may appear that the whole process is a real model of efficiency, every flight planned out to the minute and attended to by thousands of devoted air traffic controllers. While this isn't technically untrue, it's far from the full story. Air traffic control is not an exact science, and the potential room for error on every flight can be catastrophic if not handled correctly. The following are just some of the insane scenes unfolding behind the curtain. It may even make you think twice before booking your next vacation. Firstly, you might imagine that most of the operations behind air traffic control are automated. It's a common turn of phrase to say that these days the planes fly themselves. However, the reality is that air traffic control relies as much on the training and skills of its employees as the technology they use on the job. Take, for instance, the air traffic control towers that assist planes in taking off and landing. While you might expect these these towers to be massive computer banks processing flight data faster than a human mind can comprehend, in reality, they actually use a far older method: looking out the window. The height of these towers gives air traffic controllers a vantage point from which to observe planes manually on the runway, a low-tech method particularly common in smaller airports. This human element to air traffic control towers are why things as seemingly minor as snow, fog, or even heavy rain can seriously disrupt your flight time. The FAA has developed a number of technologies over the last decade to mitigate these issues, such as the Low Visibility Operations Surface Movement Guidance and Control System and the Airport Surface Detection Equipment Model X. Using these systems gives ATC a greater degree of control over the runway in larger, busier airports. However, all this technology functions mainly as a backup to air traffic controllers staring out the window all day long and making human judgments. This is part of why spatial awareness is such a crucial skill for an aspiring ATC officer to have. TRACON and en-route centers, on the other hand, are more technologically reliant by necessity. Air traffic controllers working in these facilities never see the planes directly. Instead, they perform their work with radar systems. The group of radar technicians hunched over staring at blips on their flashing screens are probably what you picture when you even think of air traffic control. What you might not know is, until very recently, the technology used for these radars was an antiquated system called HOST. Developed over 40 years ago, HOST utilized what's known as a point-to-point ground-based radar, developed all the way back in the 70s. To give you some perspective on just how old this technology was, the GPS you can use to find a missing iPhone is considerably more advanced than the radars tracking our flights. While the FAA are and have been attempting to improve this with the rollout of NextGen, a modernization of their technological systems, this has also been messy. Implementation came late, is still ongoing, and went $500 million over budget. As with any new system, there will also be a period of uncertainty while engineers work out the kinks and air traffic controllers adjust to the new demands. Still, this is preferable to using a system less advanced than the average Xbox. Beyond technological issues, the human component of air traffic control is even more concerning. You may think cabin pressure is high at 30,000 feet, but that's nothing compared to the pressure of ATCs while you're enjoying the in-flight movies up above. Air traffic controllers often work brutal hours, with shifts ranging from the crack of dawn to the dead of night, and everything in between. Air travel never sleeps, and the same can sadly be said for many of the people responsible for running it. Air traffic controllers work weekends and holidays to get you to where you need to be, and it can take a real toll on them. The dangerous consequences of this are clear. For new employees especially, the workload can be hard to adjust to. In 2011, the FAA commissioned a study that found 1 in 5 air traffic controllers had committed a severe operational error due to fatigue. What's more, the study also found that a stunning third of ATCs believed fatigue poses a serious risk to the safety of flights. Worse still, outside of hiring legions of more employees, not much can be done about this. The aviation industry is booming, and as more people fly, the workload on ATCs will only get more intense. The psychological stress put on air traffic controllers is made worse by the fact that there is no average day on the job. It's a profession where disaster can strike at any time, and air traffic controllers need to be flexible in how they approach any given situation. For example, in the summer of 2018, unstable ground employee Richard Russell stole a commercial plane and took it on an hour-long joyride. Air traffic control, with the help of Seattle law enforcement, had to communicate with Russell until his flight's tragic end, crashing the plane near the Puget Sound. In late 2018, air traffic controllers in Ireland dealt with another bizarre situation. They received a number of distressed communications from pilots in the airspace, seeing unidentified flying objects passing across the sky. Unlike the case of Mr. Russell, nobody was hurt, but the event caused considerable stress and confusion for all involved. Naturally, many conspiracy theorists claimed that the UFOs were extraterrestrial in origin. Cooler heads in the scientific community, however, said the incident was most likely a meteor shower. Air traffic control just had to get on with their work either way. Aviation doesn't wait up, aliens or otherwise. Speaking of mysterious flying objects disrupting the work of air traffic controllers, in late December of 2018, sightings of a commercial drone brought London's Gatwick Airport to its knees. A report of drone activity within a kilometer of the airport almost caused all operations to shut down for 33 hours. This caused approximately 140,000 passengers to experience serious disruptions. The police and even the military were called in to remedy the situation, but neither got concrete results. In the end, 2 suspects were arrested and brought in for questioning, but were released without charges due to insufficient evidence. It's just another example of how a seemingly tiny variable variable can disrupt the complex systems that air traffic control puts in place across the globe. It goes without saying, considering what we've learned so far, that air traffic control isn't quite the well-oiled machine we imagined it was. Why does this matter though? Plenty of industries have a margin of error. The real difference here is that when air traffic control messes up, the results range from expensive to horrific. As mentioned earlier, one of the key roles of the Air Routes Traffic Control Center is to maintain a safe distance between planes in flight. However, technological or human error can sometimes prevent this from happening. If all parties concerned are lucky, this can play out like the 2001 Japan Airlines mid-air incident. Due to errors on the part of trainee air traffic controller Hideki Hachitani and his mentor Yasuko Momii, Japan Airlines Flight 907 experienced a terrifying near miss with Flight 958. Thankfully, disaster was averted by quick thinking and evasive action on the part of the pilots. This, however, is not always the case. More often, when mid-air collisions caused by ATC errors do occur, it's with far more tragic results. In 1997, a German Air Force plane collided with a United States Air Force plane off the coast of Namibia, killing 33 people. This came as a result of ATC being unaware of the German plane's presence in the airspace. A similar issue occurred with a helicopter and a small private plane over the Hudson River, New Jersey in 2009. 9 people were killed, and in 2002, 2 commercial planes collided over Uberlingen in South Germany, killing 71. However, tragedies occurring due to ATC errors are not limited to mid-air collisions. Runway collisions are often equally dangerous. In more fortunate situations, we find examples like the 2005 Logan Airport runway incursion or the 2007 San Francisco Airport runway incursion. In both cases, air traffic control errors led to extremely risky near misses between 2 planes that resulted in airport property damage. But like the mid-air collisions, people don't always get off so easy. In the infamous 1991 Los Angeles airport disaster, an air traffic controller, distracted by some abnormalities, caused 2 commercial planes to collide while landing in Los Angeles International Airport. 35 people were killed in the process. Air traffic control have some of the hardest jobs in the world. Without them, national and international travel as we experience it today simply wouldn't be possible. They do their jobs in spite of brutal hours, antiquated technology, and some of the most stressful situations known to man. Are they the peak of organization? As we've learned in this video, absolutely not. However, the fact that they're able to operate this system at this scale, getting 44,000 flights to their destination every single day, is an incredible feat of modern engineering. The next time you're on a flight, eating a gross in-flight meal and drinking some complimentary alcohol, spare a thought for the ATC. If you think flying is stressful already, then you probably couldn't do their job either. Now we've got a tough job for you, picking which episode of the Infographics Show to watch next. Both are great videos that you're gonna love, so it's a hard decision, but we know you can handle it.